Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back on this one, y'all. He went in on the Al Horford situation and what it could mean for the Los Angeles Lakers. According to Stephen A., Horford has quietly become one of the most talked about names among contenders this offseason. And let me tell you, he says the Lakers have real interest. Stephen A. laid it out clearly. Several teams are monitoring Horford's availability. Teams like the Hawks, Warriors, and yes, the Lakers. Why? Because Horford brings veteran experience, playoff poise, and that crucial front-court flexibility. The man can still knock down the three, play solid defense, and you can run a whole pick-and-pop system through him. He's not the same player he was in his prime, but he's reliable, he's smart, he's steady, and more importantly, he's not afraid of the moment. You want a guy who can give you quality minutes at the 4 or the 5 in a playoff series? Al Horford is still that guy. Now, Stephen A. pointed out that Boston would ideally love to keep him around, but the reality is they might be entering a transition year. Horford, at 39, may not be interested in sticking around for that. He's at the point in his career where chasing one last title matters more than ever. So, what are his options? According to Stephen A., it's likely down to 3 choices: retirement, signing with the Warriors, or heading to the Lakers. Here's where things get interesting. Stephen A. mentioned that sources close to Golden State believed they had Horford locked in. They expected him to sign last week, but the silence since then? That's raised eyebrows. No announcement, no movement. That means the door is still open, and the Lakers are still very much in play. The holdup, Stephen A. speculated, could be linked to the Lakers' own internal maneuver. They're reportedly exploring consolidation trades, trying to clear up roster spots and cap flexibility. There's buzz that they may waive Shake Milton to create room. And if they do that, Stephen A. says, watch out. They could be setting up to add Horford and another veteran or two. And it doesn't stop there. Stephen A. threw out some names like Bradley Beal, who, if bought out, could also be a target, and DeAnthony Melton. Imagine a scenario where the Lakers clear 2 or 3 roster spots, dump some contracts, and suddenly sign Horford, Beal, and Melton. That's the kind of veteran firepower that changes things fast. And Horford might just be waiting for that window to open. The Lakers aren't rushing this. According to Stephen A., they're playing it smart, trying to get their cap situation right before committing to any final moves. But once they do, don't be shocked if Horford becomes one of their first pickups. Meanwhile, Atlanta has reportedly entered the picture again. That's right, his old stomping ground. Stephen A. explained that the Hawks view Horford as a rotation piece, someone who can help stabilize their young roster in an Eastern Conference that's as wide open as ever. Horford might be tempted by that. After all, Atlanta made a surprise conference finals run just a couple seasons ago. Stephen A. even said Horford could be eyeing another deep playoff push in the East, thinking maybe they can have their own version of what Indiana did this past postseason. So now it's anyone's game. Golden State thought they had him. Atlanta's making a strong push. But according to Stephen A., don't count the Lakers out, especially if they can clean house and offer Horford a shot at a real title run. And from what Stephen A. has been told, Horford is paying close attention to what's unfolding in LA. But he wasn't done. Stephen A. pivoted and said the Lakers have other big man options they're monitoring too. Names like Richaun Holmes, who was just bought out, and even Nikola Vucevic. The Vucevic situation, Stephen A. said, has been a mess. The Bulls reportedly fumbled it by asking for too much in trades. First 2 picks, then 1. And now, nobody's biting. Vucevic wants to play for a contender, and if Chicago can't move him, a buyout is very possible. But even with Vucevic's name floating around, Stephen A. made it clear, if the Lakers can get Horford now, they should pounce. He's ready. He knows how to play off LeBron and AD. He fits their style. And most importantly, he brings something this team needs: playoff-tested intelligence and floor spacing from the big man spot. Stephen A. finished that segment by saying one thing loud and clear. If Horford is still sitting on a decision, it might be because he's waiting for the Lakers to get their house in order. And when they do, don't be surprised if Horford ends up in purple and gold. And let me tell you something. Stephen A. Smith made his opinion crystal clear in the next segment. He said, and I quote, "You want stability? You want a grown man on that roster who knows how to handle postseason pressure? Then Al Horford needs to be on this team." Stephen A. emphasized that if the Lakers are serious about competing deep into May and June, they need more than just talent. They need structure. Right now, DeAndre Ayton is expected to anchor the center position. He's the 30 to 35 minute per night guy, and Stephen A. likes him, says he can be dominant when he's locked in. But he also noted that Ayton has to stay healthy and mentally focused, especially in a Lakers uniform. That spotlight is no joke. Now, behind Ayton, you've got Jackson Hayes. Stephen A. sees him as a solid rotational piece, high energy, lob finisher, rim runner, the kind of guy who gives you 12 to 15 minutes a night with hustle. But let's be honest, he's not someone you lean on in a 7-game series. Not yet. Stephen A. was very clear on that. Hayes is valuable, but he's not your safety net. That's why Horford, in Stephen A.'s view, becomes critical. Because Horford's the guy who can slide in whenever you need him, back up the 5, run next to Ayton in a 2-big lineup, or even play small ball stretches with LeBron at the 4. He brings basketball IQ, defensive instincts, and offensive versatility. And Stephen A. reminded everyone, even at 39, Horford locked in defensively for Boston. He was their anchor. He played with purpose. He made the right reads. And above all, he played winning basketball. Stephen A. even said it himself. Horford's the guy who brings that old man strength. He ain't flashy, but he knows how to get stops, how to hit that open 3, and how to keep your offense flowing without turning the ball over. He also drew a sharp comparison between Horford and Nikola Vucevic. Vooch might be more of a playmaker, Stephen A. said, but when it comes to toughness, defensive communication, and smart positioning, Horford gets the edge. If the Lakers had to choose between the two in a buyout scenario, Stephen A. leans Horford every time. But then Stephen A. took it a step further. He said the Lakers aren't going to get back into title contention through one blockbuster move. It's the accumulation, he said, layer by layer. You start with your superstar core, LeBron, Luka, if that scenario happens, DeAndre Ayton, and then you start building the structure. Jake LaRavia for spacing, Rui Hachimura for versatility, Austin Reeves for shot-making and hustle. Then add Beal if he's bought out. Add Horford for stability. Suddenly, you've got something. Stephen A. warned, though, this is all hypothetical until the games are played. We don't know how this roster is going to gel. But there's a version of this team, he says, that could be lethal. Imagine Luka and LeBron thriving together. Ayton finally becoming the mobile, two-way center people always hoped he'd be. LaRavia spacing the floor. Reeves attacking closeout. Rui giving you 18 on any given night. Beal punishing second unit. And then, Stephen A. smiled when he said this, you've got Al Horford sitting on the bench, waiting for that moment in the playoffs to hit a dagger 3 or make a game-saving rotation. That's what Stephen A. calls a complete team. He closed the segment saying that adding Horford wouldn't suddenly make the Lakers the undisputed best team in basketball, but it brings them a lot closer, because in the postseason, it's the little things that win you game. The box outs, the weak side help, the timely screen, the extra pass, and Horford, he does all of it, without needing the ball, without complaining, without ego. So if he ends up in a Lakers uniform, according to Stephen A. Smith, that's a move that could win you a playoff series. And Stephen A. wrapped it up with a message that was loud and clear. He said, you're in a Game 7, tie game, 1 minute left. You need someone who's not going to fold, who's going to stay composed, make the right read, take the open shot, rotate on defense, and hold his ground. You throw Al Horford on that floor. Because when the stakes are sky high, you need players who don't blink. Horford is one of those guys. Stephen A. called him one of the most underrated veteran assets in the league today. Someone who still brings value without needing to dominate the ball. And what makes it even more compelling? He's coming off a very solid year. Now no, he's not a towering 7-footer. He's listed at 6'9", with a 7.1 wingspan. but it's the basketball IQ that makes up for everything else. Stephen A. pointed out his shooting splits last season. 60 games played, 42 starts, nearly 28 minutes a night. He averaged almost 8 shot attempts per game, and here's the big number. He hit 36.3% of his threes on 5 attempts per game. That's legit spacing, and it wasn't a fluke. The 2 years prior, he was shooting over 42% and even up to 44.6% from deep on solid volume. You pair that with playmakers like Luka and LeBron, Horford's going to be getting the best looks of his career. Stephen A. even joked, Al might be sitting in the corner wide open sipping coffee with how much attention those guys draw. On 2-pointers, Horford hit over 55%, and his effective field goal percentage sat at 54.7%. At the line, Stephen A. called it veteran smooth. He shot nearly 90% from the stripe last season. That kind of efficiency in a backup big is gold. Rebounding? 6.2 boards per game, including a solid 1.5 on the offensive glass. Throw in 2 assists, a steal, a block, and about 9 points a night, and what you have is a player who gives you production without needing touches. Stephen A. said, he's not going to light up the scoreboard, but he'll control the tempo, make the extra pass, fight on the glass, and bring leadership to the locker room. In short, he's a grown man in a young man's league. And that's exactly the kind of energy this Lakers team needs to balance its rotation. Stephen A. also added one last point. This isn't about headline-grabbing names. It's about adding guys who know how to win. Horford's role might be quiet, but it's crucial. You can throw him next to Ayton. You can go small ball with him at the 5. You can plug him in when someone's in foul trouble. He knows exactly what to do and how to stay ready. That's why Stephen A. thinks if Horford ends up on the Lakers, it could be a season-defining addition. Not because he'll put up 25 a night, but because he's the kind of piece that wins you playoff games with effort, brains, and execution. So, as Stephen A. put it, if the Lakers are serious about winning, they should be serious about Al Horford.